Leinster, they are champions of something for the first time in what feels like a long time. But it also doesn't feel like that long since they won this league every single year. Weird one to think on.
Yeah, like as soon as you watch that game, you kind of go, oh, was that always going to happen?
Yeah.
In a way. And one thing I think we kind of screwed up on when we did our preview is we addressed the Leinster bottle angle a lot of... It's probably more indicative of like what social media likes to push on you. But there was a comment that pointed out, I think it was from a Bulls fan, who said like, no, I'm sick of us making finals and semi-finals and not winning and not getting all the way to the end because, you know, they are yet to win a URC and they've now been in 3 finals.
3 of the 4 finals involved the Bulls, they've lost all of them.
Yeah. And that is really unfortunate. And I mean, we'll get into this properly, but I don't think as a Bulls fan you could be more underwhelmed than how that final went.
Yeah, I think so. I think huge congratulations and praise should go to Leinster.
100%.
I thought they were superb. They were just very good. They should do this to every team every week, right? Yeah. And they can. And at their best,
the majority of the time they do.
Right?
Yeah.
This is the thing they do. And it's been one of these anomalies, is the fact they don't produce the same performance in finals. And they seem to approach them slightly differently, and instead of bulldozing teams in the way they do of most of the season, right? And there's always... Every year, there's one game where they're off their stride, and there's one game against a big team where they put out some of the seconds and they lose it. But generally, they don't lose more than 2, maybe 3 games a year. And then you get into the knockouts, and then something slipped up, and I think there's a different mentality there. And it felt very much like Leinster just approached this like it was a league game.
Yeah.
And in some ways, then, it felt like a league game to watch it. It was a weirdly
Massively.
underwhelming final, partly because the Bulls were terrible, and we'll get onto that. But a large part of that was because Leinster was so efficient and so effective in every area of the game.
Getting out to a 19-0 lead in 22 minutes is just a very Leinster thing to do. And then from there, like, on scoreboard-wise, it was like they parked the bus, you know? But obviously they were still moving forward a lot. And a lot of the time, I think they kind of almost let the Bulls have the ball because they weren't being threatened that much, and it ran down the clock in many ways, and it ran down the Bulls' energy, and they just kind of had to front up at many points. That, you know, there was a point towards the end of the first half where the Bulls just really easily and quickly descended into quite one-up kind of carrying rugby.
Just the one point.
Yeah, that's very true. But if we've got here, I'll play it on double speed to save you, but this is 9, 10 consecutive phases where all they're doing is just running into the people in front of them. And Leinster, no, all we have to do is just stick our shoulders into them, you know, and wrap our arms and drop them to the deck. Because Jan Hersen at 10 here, he's bossing us forwards round, sure. He's telling them where to go, which is brilliant, right? But the thing he isn't doing is thinking for himself and thinking, what can I do to turn this into a threatening attack? Because the Leinster players are all looking at Hersen and going, well, he's not going to call this out the back. He's not going to kick this. He's not going to send this wide. He's not going to do anything that's going to vary this at all. He's not even going to ask them to tip the ball on one away from the contact.
That's it, yeah. We've got onto the Bulls were terrible much quicker than I thought we would. I thought we'd talk about Leinster a bit more.
I'm sorry.
But we might as well, we're here, so we might as well get into this, right? Because the Bulls were dreadful. They were absolutely atrocious, and a huge part of that is Leinster disrupted them, right? That, like, they had plenty of area in the game before Slimani came on. It was managed to get on top of the scrum, and it gave them field position. It gave them a chance to get into the game, and they just couldn't take it. Partly because Leinster's defence was excellent, was really aggressive, really good up in their face, really disrupted the breakdown. I think we saw some of the reasons that James Ryan's going on this line saw, right, was him getting into those breakdowns and really being niggly. Ryan Baird, I thought, was absolutely phenomenal. He was the best player on the pitch.
Big Joe Mack as well.
Yeah.
Huge up front.
Smiley
really
once he came on. But those players just flying in and disrupting the ball and leading to the Bulls constantly having even slower ball than they were expecting, right? And like an enormous part of the Bulls being so one-dimensional was down to that, was down to Leinster disrupting them. However, it wasn't helped by the fact they were so unambitious. And you look at, that set when they get into towards the end of the first half, they had 2 sets in the Leinster half, and Leinster 22 even. And both times, it was purely one-up rugby. And you mentioned Hersen, yes, he's telling his forwards where to go, but it's literally he's going set left, set right, set left, set right. It's not
give me a carrier, give me a pod, rather than like, give me this, and then somebody run off my outside here, and then give me someone in the boot off that, and then do something else.
He is also calling those shapes after the last carry has been made, rather than advance. It's not like, let's go here, then let's go here, and let's set here. It's so one-dimensional. I thought Hurst had a terrible game.
And
just really, like, not taking anything on himself, being very unauthoritative. And then when he did get the ball, which he didn't do very often, but like there's a few terrible decisions. He ran a ball back that he really shouldn't have from depth and got turned over and, conceded a penalty, which Leinster kicked for 3 points. And just all game long was like anonymous. And then when he did get involved, you were a bit like, why are you involving yourself here?
He was really unsure of how to get around this Leinster defensive line because they were so strong and so bold and so in their faces that... And it's difficult. I've had those games where you play at 10 and you're like, I don't know where the space is in this defensive line. And we're already far enough downfield that there's no point in me putting a kick up here.
Sure, yeah.
So I don't know what's going on here. I don't know what to do. So I'm just going to ask my forwards to run into somebody.
Yeah.
Just so that's more likely to create space than anything else.
But you made the point on because we just watched back a bunch of it in the office together. And there was one set where the Bulls were already 19-0 down in the first half. And... yet they had the ball between the posts, they've been going nowhere, and it got to phase 11, you're saying, just at this point, just kick a drop goal.
Yeah.
Just like get the scoreboard moving.
Yeah.
Just get going. Like, that is better than what you're doing because you were not going to score a try. There was no point in the game, including 10 seconds before they scored, where I thought the Bulls were going to score any points.
It sounds nuts, right? But it's like the Tynes Kutzer Namibia logic of like, well, we've got a weapon that means we can get field position, i.e. the scrum in their case. For the Namibian team, it was a kicker.
Yeah.
And then, if you get down there, you can maybe sneak out 9 cheap points when the opposition have done nothing wrong. And at that point, they'll start to panic and throw daft offloads, and you can then pick up a scrap or two, or,
Or you get that one maul that does go well.
Yeah,
and suddenly
exactly.
It's
Or
very
someone will
different
shoot out of line
situation.
because they're so desperate to have a big moment and they make an arm tackle and you flood through and you score. That the opposition will start making errors like that. And the thing is, there's obviously when you're 19 points down, you don't go, let's get a drop goal and reduce the gap to 16. But also there's 50 minutes to go. So it's a weird one.
But there's this passage, and it is in the Bulls' own half, right? But they recover the ball, they're in a position to attack here, and you look at Leinster's defence, and it's one of the moments where they're not well set. Leinster have to scramble to get into position here after a very loose ball that's come, and both sides, Leinster are not able to get off the line, they're not able to go quickly, their lines are pretty badly aligned, and if you would set up to attack either of them, and the Bulls have enough players on their feet to do so, you could make yardage. And yet, they don't. They set like this, completely shapeless, completely pointless, and they have no option but for Hurst to just hoof it in the air. They then lose this ball, and in the moment, really, the puts in a very good kick, but that's kind of irrelevant. The broad nature is they didn't think once, at looking at the Leinster defence. Yeah. It was all just okay, we need to kick, we need to advance, and obviously they're coached by Jake White, right, who won a World Cup with very boring tactics when rugby was in a period where that was what won games. It's not at the minute. No. Tries win games now. Attack is the most important part of the game at the moment, rather than defence, rather than kicking, rather than set piece. And so, the Bulls got here because they did attack incredibly well, particularly at home, and they were scoring bonus point after bonus point. And they seemed to go we're playing finals rugby now, so we're going to adapt it, and we're going to kick everything, and we're going to play no rugby in the middle third. And instead, it just didn't work for them at all.
Didn't play rugby.
Well, Jake White said the day before the game he was praying for rain, right? And he got it. He got his wish, and he really shouldn't have hoped for it. The Bulls would have had a better chance if it was blaring down.
I think he
sunlight.
wanted it to get rained off.
Yeah, yeah, that was their best chance if they called it 0-0. I just the Bulls were terrible. Villiers Leroux's got a lot of flack here, right? And I think, however, whilst he deserves a lot of it because a lot of the execution was terrible, he was the only person trying things.
Yeah.
Generally, there would be 10 phases of the Bulls forwards going left, right, left, right, left, right, losing 1 metre at a time or going nowhere. Repeatedly, we saw them take a standing start and go make what seemed like a great carry, but they're still behind the game line because they're in really poor positions to start with. There's no dynamism coming off the ball. Instead, Hurston's just calling left, right, left, right. There's nothing going on. Papier's just listening and just kind of standing off and going what a lovely day out in Dublin this is. And then after 15 phases, Villiers will get bored and try something that wasn't on.
Yeah.
And I don't blame him at all because if you are in that situation where you are so desperate, your two options are either kick a drop goal as we say, or try something outlandish and hope it lands. Try a ridiculous kick that isn't really on. Try a miss pass over the top. Try something ridiculous, And then it all Taylor Moody throws him an absolutely terrible ball at his toes and he knocks it on.
And he's fuming.
He's fuming.
Of course you would be.
Yeah.
I think his poor game, right, was an indication of the people around him.
Yeah.
That he was having very little. And he's the most experienced player in his team. Is he necessarily now the best player? Who knows? Who even cares? It's not really relevant.
Well, I mean, their best player over the season in Hanneken was missing. Other than Wilco Lowe, who I thought did have a good game. It's the one ball I'd point to and be like, actually, he was great.
Yeah, especially at scrum time, but also he moved forward in carries and stuff. But also, Leroux forcing things, it's because he's played in teams who were on the back foot before. He's so experienced, so he knows as long as you have to try and stretch your defence. And most of the time it didn't come off because Leinster's defence wasn't stretched.
Yeah.
Because their defence was so good and big and powerful and matched the Bulls physically. And I think from there on out, the Bulls didn't really know where to go from there.
Yeah.
You know?
Where Leinster were just very straightforward, very next job, next job, next job. You can tell by the fact that 2 of their tries were from mauls, right?
Yeah.
And the Josh van der Fleer try, I think, in particular, is a really, really smart bit of rugby. Just the way that they dragged the pack left and right and opened this gap up in the middle, like the Red Sea just parting and opening up for van der Fleer to go over against his countrymen. However, there is then the other try as well, the Conan try, which is a similar move where they kind of peel off. They kind of captured it a bit. It's like they've got 2 maul tries, they kicked a couple of penalties, which Leinster don't do a lot of. It's increased a bit the back half of the season, but like they're not a big penalty kicking team. But they just like knew that the Bulls weren't going to... The Bulls at absolute most were going to score about 15 points, right? So if you get beyond that total, and they did after 20 minutes,
Simplified
just keep
finals rugby,
stretching it, exactly.
Yeah.
And so they were able to win that game with relative ease.
Contrast what we were saying earlier about the Bulls and the shape and attack and everything with this from Leinster, and this one isn't one of the ones that comes off, but it's a little bit of ambition that Prendergast has had to hit the previous breakdown. He's on the deck, and instead here, so Ahir Sneeman steps up as first receiver. Andrew Porter runs such a threatening line off him, and James Lowe comes in at the very last second into Sneeman's boot, and he's so late into there, but he's at full speed already, so he's a real genuine threat. And obviously he's such a good ball player. He's on the left hand side, so potentially a little dink and behind is also an option. So the Bulls are so overwhelmed just thinking about who on earth have we got to mark here? Because Porter's running a threatening line, Lowe's in the boot here, they're going to have people out wide running lines off Lowe, let's cover them all. And then suddenly, when you do all that, what's the thing that I mentioned first about this attack? The person who's got the ball. Who's that?
Ahir Sneeman.
Ahir Sneeman, the guy who is literally like the biggest of all of the professional rugby players and the hardest to tackle. And they basically forget to tackle him. And he throws a dummy like into the boot, and it's beautiful. He sells it all ends up, and the Bulls think they're going out the back, and in the end, they forget to just tackle Ahir Sneeman. Now, this isn't a fault on the Bulls. Like, any other team would have had this happen to them because the Leinster attack is so flawlessly just pieced together, even at short notice by Lowe here. And Sneeman goes on, throws the offload. They end up going wide. It doesn't quite come off. They try a little kick in behind. It doesn't really work. But it's the way that Leinster make you think in defence that really overwhelms you, and it mentally tires you more than anything.
It's things like exactly what we're saying Hurston wasn't doing, right? Of just getting a player in the boot and opening that up because you force the tackler to just think about it an extra second and think about the tackle they're about to make. Or likewise, just keeping an eye to opportunities, right? So like Dan Sheehan ends up making a break off this down the short side purely because Leinster are looking up and saying that the Bulls are numbers short here. And there isn't anything more complicated to the shape than that. It's literally them just scanning the full field and looking at all times for any opportunity that opens up. And it's just being that sharp and that alert and having the structures in place to take the opportunity with them.
The standout moment of that was the try scored by Geordie Barrett.
It was indeed.
It was absolutely fantastic. Where what's great about this is that is such a tiny pocket of space that they've exploited here, and yet both Tommy O'Brien and Geordie Barrett spotted that off the ball. And not only that, but Luke McGrath, in his skill set, the way he executes this is brilliant. So he shapes for a proper aerial box kick, which is looking at Tommy O'Brien's chase, what you would as a defender think he's going for. It's for a long one in behind to get a 1v1 against Leroux and smack him into the floor, get him into touch, right? And instead, he lifts the ball, and only as he's about to drop it, he drops the ball onto its side and goes from what looks like a long one into a little roller in behind, gets the bounce up for Geordie Barrett to leather it, and he really sticks his foot through it. You can hear him saying, "Evitt," like that on the ref mic. You can't. But it was absolutely brilliant executed.
Geordie Barrett spots it from so far away as well. He is some way off, and he kind of sees it and he runs in and runs that really lovely curved angle. And you see the Bulls defence kind of sit up thinking he's running a short ball and he's going to come in on the pop. And no, instead he just slides by and gets that initial hack in, which is a brilliant bit of skill. And then from there managed to finish it as well. And good on Tommy O'Brien leaving it.
Yes.
Because like I do think there's something really nice about the fact that obviously Leinster got 2 tries from Moles, both coming from really experienced campaigners who've been there an awful lot. But their other 2 tries came from the big money overseas signing, which is something Leinster meant to bring into their squad an awful lot, and also the randomly generated, like the kid they 3D printed that morning in Fintan Gunn, who took his try incredibly well. He clearly really wanted to score it.
Yeah, AI zone.
Yeah. And like, obviously you would, right? If you have just stepped out of the 3D printer and you emerge blinking into the world and your first sight is the Aviva Stadium, you too would want to do the only thing you're trained to do, which is play rugby and score tries.
I've coached under-9s rugby before, right? They all want to score.
Yeah.
But no, he takes this so brilliantly well. And it's a lovely setup in the starting play that they have 3 men in the front line to potentially take it. And once again, same as I was saying for James Lowe there, Gunn's timing onto this is beautiful. That getting that pass away, bouncing out, and obviously it helps that the scrum was really solid with the Rugby Slimani on it, tight head there. And Gunn slides out into that boot beautifully. And it's not just that he gets a second touch. How much time does he have on the ball here? That he gets to slide in, slide back out, he gets to throw the dummy, he gets to slide back onto his feet, and he gets to ground it. Like, he has so much time on the ball. It's a beautifully called play. It may have been Byrne, I'm assuming it was Ross Byrne. Yeah. It might have been Gunn himself, might have called this. Someone on the sideline might have spotted that the last man for the balls often defends a little bit tighter, so this is where you want to throw 3 men at them. Whatever it was, like, it was a really nicely timed and called out play. Yeah, no, it's excellent. It's really good. And just captures everything Leinster have done all season, right? Yeah. Which is both those pulling the right move at the right time and also throwing youngsters in the deep end and believing that they will swim because they're in with really experienced senior internationals and now Lions. Yeah. And the thing with Leinster is that these players eventually become those guys, you know, that like at one point we no doubt would have watched a game where we considered Hugo Keenan in the same way we consider some of these guys, and same with Caelan Doris, and same with, you know, all the world-class players that they've produced, and them having this silverware off the back of it. You know, you can talk as much as you want about the ones that they've not picked up along the way, but the fact that they picked this up is testament to that, because with the exception of Geordie Barrett, Ahis name and Rugby Slimani, who's not even like a big name signing, but he was just a very solid and really like Moneyball type signing that they made. Right? It's Moneyball if emphasis on the money. Yes, exactly. But it's a very homegrown team that they put out, is my point. And obviously it helps when you start Geordie Barrett in finals. I think that's been the moral of the story. Yep. And I hope that when Rico Ioane comes next year that he gets some good game time. Yeah. But yeah, I think they've really, really deserved this. And it makes you wonder how many more are potentially on the horizon, because this Leinster machine, when it's at its best, is very hard to stop. And the thing is that you said at the start of the video is typically it's only at its best for 90% of the season, and that 10% is enough to stunt them, right? But you hope from their perspective that they can have another season to back this up, because there will be some naysayers out there who won't think this is enough. But if you're a Leinster fan, you know, I hope you've really enjoyed that, because it's been a long time coming and it's deserved. Absolutely. Ryan Baird, I thought was brilliant. Yes. Game, incredibly destructive, just like really on the warpath for everyone that said he shouldn't have been in the Lions squad, including Andy Farrell, who'll probably get beaten up soon by him. Sam Prendergast played very well. Yes. That spiral kick he put in the second half, proper cricket shot, impossible to catch. Yeah, like brilliant. So difficult. Like, leaves the clerk completely like impossible to take. Yeah. So hard. You then have Wilco Lower played very well for the Bulls. Like, he's the one guy you pull out and be like, you. Rugby Slimani off the bench, Ahis Nyman off the bench. Like, James Ryan, I thought had his best game in a little while. I thought it was just like a really complete performance from everyone. And you kind of couldn't ask for more if you're a Leinster fan. Like, you just go like, this was what we've been hoping would happen. Business as usual, but in a final. Yeah. Like, how good? Yeah. It's exactly what you want. And also, like, I loved... we've talked a lot about the rugby side of it, but just like it clearly meant a lot to them because of like how much negative press they've had around this and so on. Like when Gunn scores that try, the celebration Ross Byrne puts in here is like, it's just brilliant. It clearly like really meant something to them, especially doing it at the legendary Croke Park. Like it was really, really great. And brilliant for the United Rugby Rabbitoh Pro 12 that they've had a different winner every season. Yeah. Right? 4 seasons and a different winner each year. Like, I love that. That's great. It's so much better than the previous version of it being the, Guinness Pro 14 was won by Leinster every time. That was the name of the competition. So, it is great to see. Hopefully we see another new name, namely the Dragons,
on title next year.
Zebra's year. Come on, it's got to be.
It could be. That is the one question I want to kind of finish on, right? Is do you think Leinster kick on from here and win the same or even more next season, or is this them getting their one big thing out the way?
It's really hard to tell because Leinster are one of those where you kind of can't take their form into account, weirdly.
Yeah.
Because you would have said, if you asked me that like the last 4 years on the trot, I'd have said, yeah, obviously Leinster are going to win something this year. And that would have been the end of the conversation. Whereas this time round...
It's not the season I said the Bulls to win.
Yeah. And that is the other angle of it, is that, you know, you'd imagine that the Bulls have got to win one eventually, haven't they? Because they're a good enough team. We've slated them enough here. But throughout the season, like, they thoroughly deserve to be in the final and, like, undisputedly deserve to be there because they were the next best team in the competition. And, you know, we would have been saying they were the best if they'd won that game. But that's a whole different ball game. So, to answer your question, I have to say my instinct is, yeah, Leinster will win something again next season. But also, I would have said that every year. So... yeah.
I think
what about you?
This particular performance is exactly what Leinster needed.
Yeah.
If they'd come out and either beaten them by 70 and been like one of those Destiny days where they're like uniquely fired up, then it probably would have been less easy to translate. Or if they narrowly scraped it by and they'd been like, oh, okay, we managed to just about win it, then maybe it'd be different and it'd be like, phew, we finally got the monk off the back. Instead, they just turned up, did their thing, won comfortably without it being an absolute honking, right? And I think that's exactly what they needed to be like, yeah, we're good enough that if we just turn up and do the thing we do every week to Scarlets or to Edinburgh or whoever, then we can do that in the final, right? Because we're that much better than the team that was comfortably the second best team in the league over the course of the full regular season.
We also spoke in the preview about how this is the first year of like the Prendergast era.
And
the fact they've done it with that kind of like title, like subheading, is probably a good thing for them that he's got his first bit of silverware. That
he looked delighted when he went off. He was just like absolutely buzzing.
He was, all game, he looked like he was just enjoying himself.
Yeah, which is great with the pressure he's been under and the way he's been talked about.
And like he actually made a few decent tackles, which is quite nice to see.
Some really good.
And Jack Nate, but the way he talked about him after the game, actually, as defence coach, said like, yeah, he misses some tackles, and we are very aware of that. And he is extremely aware of that and wants to learn and grow in that area. But also, he does actually make some good tackles. And there's a lot of games you could point out this season where that's definitely not true. And he's just saying that as a defender's player.
I think we can already see his defence improving from where it was in Six Nations.
In that game, you can definitely see that like there's enough in there that you can teach this man to make hits.
We are accidentally walking back into a Crowley-Prendergast debate.
We are.
And we are, I think, trying to avoid those right now. Instead, we're doing Craig Casey versus Kieran Hardy debates. To try and just pick up as many fans as possible, truly. So the URC is over for another season.
It is.
It will be back next year. There will be 4 Welsh teams in it, we are hoping. And hopefully plenty of other teams. Who knows? One of them might even win it.
Zebra.